This is All About Home Construction, and here's your hosts, Terry Cannell-Beck and Randy Blake.
That's right. Good morning. Can't say good morning, Randy, because he's doing his stuff again. Working on a house in South Carolina, but no worries. We got a live show for you on this Saturday morning. Thanks for listening to us here at All About Home Construction. Hey, don't forget, by the way, the podcast, All About Home Construction, wherever you listen to podcasts. And we got a special guest that'll be on in just moments from now. But hey, wanted to remind everyone tonight, of course, the 16th being the this Luck of the Irish coming up pretty soon, tomorrow, right? Tonight, Irish pot roast dinner at the VFW, only $12. So you got to go over tonight to the VFW and get a nice Irish pot roast dinner. Some corned beef, cabbage. Actually, I really like corned beef and cabbage, but that's just me. So go over and check them out tonight at the VFW and say, hey, the guy on the radio said, come check this out. So again, thanks for all of our listeners out there. We appreciate all the listeners throughout the week. And those that email us at allabouthomeconstruction@gmail.com. And then, of course, the Facebook page, All About Home Construction. We get lots of people listening every week, and we really appreciate that. You know, Randy and I sit back, and it's like every week we talk about the next topic. And more times than not, it's off of conversations that we have with you, the listeners, throughout the week that kind of spur this topic, whatever we're talking about. And we got a good one today coming up in just a moment. And I believe we have a caller on the air. Good morning, caller. Is this Alex?
Hey, Terry. Yeah, it is. Alex from Insulating Services here with John.
John and Alex from Insulating Services. I appreciate you guys for calling in the show today. And I was just telling the listeners I was really excited about this topic because it's one that we kind of talk generally about this topic here on All About Home Construction quite a bit, but we'll get into that. But first, John and Alex from Insulating Services, you guys are based out of Charlotte, is that right?
Correct. Yep, headquartered in Charlotte, and then we do have offices kind of scattered about a bit in the southeast as well.
Yeah, I did see you. You have a place in Kingsport, and I guess as the crow flies, it'd be a toss-up between which is closer. But I like to go to Charlotte because as we actually met in Charlotte, going to a Charlotte FC game. So everyone who listens knows I'm a big soccer fan. So yes.
Oh, awesome.
Right, Charlotte is a soccer town.
Exactly.
So.
What we were out there for a recruitment effort. We've got a tent set up sponsoring with the Charlotte FC groups, and with you, Terry, it was kind of just a cool, quick interaction, and it's cool how we lined up to be able to not but a few weeks later be on the radio with you. So.
That's it. Well, Alex, again, so your job is you're the marketing coordinator, and then of course we have John with us who's the operating manager. I can't talk this morning.
Exactly.
I tell you what, before we get into the main topic of the show, just tell us a little bit about the company and what you guys do.
Yep. Yeah, sure, Terry. Thanks again for having us on the show. So I'll just give you the quick 1 or 2 minute commercial, if you will. So in a nutshell, we're a self-performing craft provider of insulation for industrial and commercial applications. We're not a labor pool, but a service provider with full-time employees. And our company is still family-owned. We just celebrated our 50th year, going into our 51st. And, insulation is commonly understood as the Pink Panther insulation you find at Home Depot or Lowe's that goes into your house. We're not really involved in the residential side of insulation. We're more in the industrial and commercial. So an industrial facility would be a manufacturing plant. For example, where you're at in the Raleigh-Durham area, there's a lot of pharmaceutical and life sciences facilities out there, whether it be a Merck or a Pfizer, Novo Nordisk. So we would furnish the labor and the materials to install insulation on piping, ductwork, various types of process equipment. And then we also have on the commercial side, where the commercial is more of maybe a hotel, a hospital, high-rise building, downtown Raleigh, that sort of thing. So that's really our business in a nutshell.
Well, that's the thing. So much here on the All About Home Construction, we talk about residential, and that is our sort of our focus. But when we're up here in the high country, we have this big issue of the we bring so up here. We're in Boone, of course, Appalachian State next door, and so we have a lot of people who come up, in that commercial. And we think of commercial up here, it's a lot of apartment buildings and things like that that are being built. But it's one of those things that there's a lot of jobs that's in that market, and so I think too many times the construction, when you look at construction, residential and commercial are two different beasts, but they have a lot of commonalities. And I think that's one thing that sometimes gets lost in that because they're so different.
Correct. There's a lot of overlap between all these industries. And part of why we're involved in our initiative as far as marketing is not so much specifically marketing our company, but marketing the industry, construction industry as a whole, because one of the biggest threats to not only our business, but also to the construction industry as a whole is the reducing supply of skilled labor with increasing demand, right? So you got a double whammy. So there's less and less people in the trades. The construction population's getting older, and we're not backfilling it fast enough. So I think part of it is generational. The other part of it is I believe it's a lack of awareness. A lot of people just think, hey, I just need to go to college, and there's a room for that. There's a place for that. I went to college myself, but there's a tremendous opportunity financially, especially, to get into the trades, and not just insulation specifically. So we want to make sure we get the message out that this is a very vibrant and growing industry, and there's tremendous opportunity for those that are perhaps not wanting to go the college route.
Sure. So one thing that we've talked about that I kind of notice is, we had the big, in the residential side, we had this big crash, in 2008, about, a little over a decade, right? We're going on 15 years ago now. But I think what we're seeing in the residential side of things, especially, is that we lost a lot of workers who would now be in that retirement phase had they had stayed. So there was already a shortage, and then it's just sort of like people who didn't come back. And so now we're still building a little bit of that gap, and it's getting closer, I think, as time goes on. But I'm curious if you see that in that commercial side of the industry.
Not because of the financial crisis that hit the residential market. I think it's just a replenishment issue, as folks that have been in the construction industry for quite a while, as they retire, there's just not enough new people backfilling. So it's been in the decline for the last 10 to 15 years. And I believe COVID also exposed a little bit more of an issue because if you remember, there were shortages of a lot of things, extended lead times for things, and part of the issue was not just getting supplies from overseas or whatnot. It was also a shortage of labor,
Exactly.
That just continues.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I was reading a statistic from the Bureau of Labor statistics, and they're saying that in the next within the next 10 or so years, we're increasing 5 to 10% in the industry, as far as employment growth, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're looking at the fact that we have a shortage already, the fact that we're increasing the need, another 5 to 10% is just going to widen that gap if we're not careful.
It is, but that's where the opportunity lies, right? Because you have increasing demand and lower supply. That means prices go up. So wages for skilled field labor continue to go up. It used to be that if you started out in any kind of construction craft industry, you'd be in the $15, $16 an hour range. Now you're in the mid-20s and above.
Well, and that's crucial. As we look through, I don't agree with this number, but North Carolina, for an average, what they call a livable wage, is $35,000 a year. Well, I kind of laugh at that too, but I point that out because, in the construction industry, I mean, you can start out the Even just a common laborer, if you will, is going to make above that, given the last couple of years.
Far above that.
So yeah, I mean that
we have.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say we have workers in the field that have been with us since they were in their early 20s, and now they're in their mid 30s, and they're making well into the six figures. Now, of course, that includes a lot of overtime. It's obviously hard work, but the earning potential is immense.
And that's what we push a lot. One thing that we like to do is especially the younger people coming up. Going high school students going into that after high school experience, whether it's college or trades, whatever. But one thing we like to push is that that big thing of you can actually make money, and in a lot of cases, you can make more money in the construction field than you can if you go to the 4-year route, because there's not as a demand in a lot of fields. So you got a college degree, you got a plaque to put on the wall, but what does that really mean?
Yeah, and one of the things too is that, and I think we touched on this yesterday when we spoke. A lot of these college degrees, if you're not getting a degree in a STEM field, science, technology, engineering, math, and you're getting a liberal arts degree that doesn't have any tangible utility, you're going to end up, and I'm not bashing anybody with a liberal arts degree, so I don't want to get the pitchforks out here, people coming after me. But it's just the reality of the situation. You can get out of college with $250,000 debt, and you're working a $60,000 a year job, where if you learn a trade, now granted the work is tougher, but you're starting out ahead. You're not starting out with debt. You're making a lot of money, and it's also a leapfrog to entrepreneurship. Again, this transcends our company and insulation in general. But if you learn a skill like plumbing or HVAC, you could start your own business, and you'll be far better off than potentially working for somebody the rest of your life, making $60,000-$70,000 a year and paying down college debt for 20 years.
Exactly, and again, that's sort of the new American dream, right? I mean, it's always been part of that American dream, but I think in as we go into the 21st century, that's the American dream, right?
I believe so. And automation, artificial intelligence, I think they're going to replace a lot of jobs in the future, especially anything that's of the computational nature. And you're already seeing a lot of these big tech companies, they're laying people off, and they're really investing heavily into AI. And I'm sure you and maybe your listeners have, messed around with ChatGPT. You ask it to solve a calculus problem, it has it in 2 seconds.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But you're not going to get a robot to install a stick of insulation at a job site, So
right. And
that's a threat that our industry is not going to have from automation and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, as long as there's a demand and people living in a house or living in a building or shopping in a building, there's going to be that demand of need, or that need of construction. People in the construction trades.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys.
Even beyond that.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to take a first break, and we're going to come right back right after this, speaking with John and Alex from Insulating Services down in Charlotte. Thanks for listening to us. We'll be right back right after these. That's right. All about home construction here on WATA. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there. Hey, don't forget tonight here in Boone at the VFW, the Irish pot roast dinner. $12 over at the VFW as always. And this is one of those guys that you can just kind of show up at the door. No advance tickets, so you're good to go. Go check out the Irish pot roast. I love a good corned beef, cabbage, and corned beef and cabbage. There you go. I can't talk this morning, but thanks for listening to us. Speaking with John Cenas and Alex Deaton from Insulating Services. Good morning, guys. Thanks again for hopping in on the show from down in Charlotte.
You bet. Yeah, thanks for having us. Absolutely.
Yeah. So one thing here on the All About Home Construction, we focus a lot on obviously the home construction side of things. And so we do appreciate having some industrial guys coming in, some commercial guys. Now, when I think of, commercial jobs, like, again, being in Boone, we have App State next door, and it seems like they're always building a new building, or someone in the town is building a new apartment building, and that's really around here. That's where my mind goes when we talk about commercial buildings. What is sort of like, what does your industry look like?
So your characterization of commercial is accurate. That's typically what we look at as or classify as commercial. I'd say about 60% of our business, 65% is in the industrial side. And industrial, just think of manufacturing. So, for example, in Liberty, North Carolina, which is about an hour from Raleigh, kind of equidistant almost from Greensboro and Raleigh, Toyota is building a battery manufacturing plant. Right? It's like a $13 billion investment. So that plant right there has a lot of process equipment, a lot of piping. It has a central energy plant that provides utilities, steam, water, chill water to the whole facility. And there's an immense amount of insulation in these plants. And where it's different is a commercial building, you're insulating plumbing, for example, for freeze protection purposes. At a manufacturing facility, you might have a 500-degree steam line, right, that's supplying some piece of equipment in the plant, and that needs to be insulated not only for heat efficiency purposes, but also for personnel protection, right, so nobody gets burned. So that's one example, the manufacturing plant for Toyota that we're doing right now. BMW, their big plant in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Every time they expand, we've been involved in those projects. In the RTP area during COVID, when the vaccines were being manufactured, I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but the vaccines were primarily manufactured in North Carolina. So Merck and Durham, Pfizer and Sanford, we were one of the contractors that were hired to perform the installation scope for those projects. So the industrial side of things is just more heavy manufacturing. And it could be in pharmaceutical, it could be in automotive, it could be in pulp and paper, food and beverage, chemical, petrochemical, just a whole gamut. And it is the industrial area where the supply-demand imbalance for skilled labor is even more prevalent, because a lot of that skilled type of work is tougher to find. And it's far more needed, and it's not as ubiquitous as somebody able to put insulation on a piece of plumbing or a piece of duct in a hotel, right? So it's a different skill set, and it's a higher paid skill set on the industrial side of things. I don't know if that answered your question at all, or give you an idea, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I was curious, because again, when we see so much of what we see, especially visually, like when you drive down the road, right, you see the guys, putting the insulation and stuff on the walls, if you will. But you don't. I think a lot of the stuff you do kind of are inside. They're kind of behind closed doors, so to speak, and that not open to the public, if you will. And so I think it's one of those things that I believe is kind of, it's overlooked in your industry in general, and I say that not to just to point out that, like, you just assume there's insulation in there. You never really think about how it gets there and what it does.
Yeah. It's out of sight, out of mind, really. People don't see. I mean, if anyone's been to, a petroleum refinery, the gasoline that gets in our cars, the amount of effort and energy that goes into in terms of processing power to convert crude oil into gasoline. I think the average person just doesn't have an idea of what all goes into it. And that's not just for that. In anything, your iPhone, any kind of consumer product that you have, there's so many components that come from industrial manufacturing facilities like this. And it's truly amazing, all the effort, the money, the investment, the blood, sweat, and tears that go into manufacturing a lot of these things.
Sure.
Part of our mission is to make people aware that, hey, there's a huge opportunity here as a career, and you're also contributing to society, and a lot of people just don't realize that. So that's kind of the message we're trying to put out there.
Sure. Now, I know a lot of the state in general, a lot of cities in the state, and just not just North Carolina, but the Southeast, well, really the whole United States, from the government, from the federal government down, is a big push on, this transition of fossil fuels into renewable energy. But to me, with that really is more of a consumption of energy rather than, like I look at it as a, how are we consuming the energy? How are we protecting, if you will, the energy? We have to have heat in some way. But what I noticed on your website, one of the things that you really promote is just sort of protecting the environment by insulating. And I think that's one of those places, both in residential and commercial, that, again, we just sort of assume, again, you sort of mentioned the cotton candy and the wall insulation, right?
Yeah.
But the industry is, we spend so much time in the news. We talk, we hear about renewable and green energy and stuff. But I think going along with that would be services like yours as well.
Absolutely. It's very crucial. And insulation is not something that's thought about very often when it comes to sustainability and environmental impacts. But, if everybody can relate to their home, right? If your home was poorly insulated and you're got your air conditioner on or your heater on, and, all the heat that you're putting into the room is going out the wall with heat loss, right? Your costs are going to go up and you're wasting energy. And so in these industrial facilities, which consume a lot of power, a lot of energy to operate, energy efficiency is extremely important, not only from a sustainability standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint. And insulation is kind of the low-hanging fruit, if you will, of addressing a lot of the energy issues of the future. Just nobody ever really talks about it. They just talk about the big picture things. Oh, we need to transition to electrical vehicles, and we need to transition to this. You're going to need fossil fuels to do all that, and you're going to need energy efficiency and insulation to do it. Just to give you a stat that's very interesting, the National Insulation Association did a study, and they said that 35% of insulation in an industrial facility is either badly damaged or completely missing, right?
Wow.
So if you have a boiler that's running 24/7 to supply steam to the plant, and 35% of the insulation is damaged or missing, I mean, you're just wasting away energy. You're consuming even more fossil fuel and creating more emissions just to keep up with that energy loss. So it's a big deal, and it just flies under the radar, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I can think of some instances of walking in warehouses, for instance, or walking in even the grocery store. When you can see that, you look up and you see all the ductwork and all the pipes with the insulation around it, and it's like you see it missing, or you see it halfway on, falling down, and I yeah, that's a lot. 35%. I mean, that's a huge piece of the consumption there.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a conservative estimate, but
sure,
nonetheless staggering.
Yeah. Well, and one thing, again, not being on the commercial side of things, one thing that I'll think of too is like you're dealing with larger areas in general, and so when you're talking about heat loss and retention, like, it's just going to be harder because it's bigger. It's it's the more feet you have, the harder it is to insulate, right? That's why coolers are small.
Correct.
So yeah, it makes total sense. Well, one thing on the insulation I'm curious about is Now, I know, given the vast array of services that you guys provide in terms of, especially on the manufacturing side of things, but is most of what you're working with now, like the closed cell foam insulation, is that really where the industry is at?
There's no set material for the industry. It just really depends on the application. So for refrigerated type of applications, condensation control, you see a lot of closed cell. Heck, if you go to a Sam's Club or Costco and you go around the freezer area and you see all that black rubber insulation up there,
right?
That's typical for those applications. For industrial, residential, commercial, traditionally you see fibrous insulation, like your fiberglass,
right?
Type insulation. So, and those are very tried and true, and they're fairly inexpensive. So those are very common. And then you have your really high-end applications, maybe your cryogenic, negative 250 degrees. So those get a little bit more specialized types of materials, or extremely hot applications that are 1,200 degrees and above. You get special ceramic insulation materials. But I'd say 70% of it is your traditional fibrous insulation, fiberglass, and then your elastomeric foams, your closed cell insulations, like you mentioned.
Okay.
They're like single one standard.
Right. I was just curious, because we see that in the residential side. You see a little of both, blown in insulation. You see the fiberglass insulation, and you see the closed cell or the foam insulation. And it seems to be a push to go more towards the foam insulation because as a broad general rule, it's a little more efficient, if you will, but it's not cheaper. And I think that's the trade-off. And that's in any business, right? Is what is the benefits? Like, what do you get out of it versus what you put into it money-wise?
Yeah. It's always the trade-offs, right? Try to get the best trade-offs you can for your application.
Yeah, totally. So, and you mentioned something there that I hadn't really thought about, and that's condensation. And we, again, coming from the residential side, I hate to keep saying on that. That's where our experience is. But coming from the residential side, we talk so much about vapor barriers and keeping that out. And, and the main reason we put a wrap on the outside of a house before we put siding on is to help with that moisture and help with that condensation. But, I can imagine, again, when you're talking about a steam that's coming through, 500 degrees, you're going to have a lot different and, set, if you will, of condensation than you would in a house. So
yeah, and so in an industrial facility, your condensation control applications is if you have chilled water, and a chilled water will be at 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's a cold piece of pipe, and if the conditions outside are just right, it's humid, it's hot, then that pipe is going to sweat. Yep. So, and, if it could be an indoor pipe, it'll be sweating over a piece of equipment. It could be sweating on your floor. So you want to insulate a piece of pipe like that to prevent from condensation forming. So that's a very typical application in industrial. Now, if you have a cryogenic application like liquid nitrogen, liquid oxygen, where, the operating temperature is negative 300 degrees Fahrenheit. That takes a very specialized type of insulation at a very large thickness to prevent not only condensation, but something turning into an ice ball, more or less.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, it's like you said, it's bad enough. Everyone do the science experiment where you lay the glass of iced tea out and watch the condensation on the outside, I couldn't imagine it being, below zero. I mean, that's a really good point there. So, yeah. And again, that's some of those things that go unseen that, the average person, even the average worker in that factory or manufacturing plant probably hadn't even think of that, like that's, it's out of sight, out of mind. Right. So. Until it's not, right? Until there's a problem, someone didn't do their job right, and then
that's right.
But we're gonna take another break here in just a minute. But I am curious, like, is most of your work like new? Because I know you talked about the Toyota plant and the BMW plants, like new buildings, new construction. Is that the biggest part of your industry in the insulation, or is there a lot of like retrofitting, going back and fixing up stuff?
There's both. If we could discuss after the break if you'd like, or beforehand.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, let's take a break, and then we'll come right back and just curious about that. And then, of course, we want to also get back into just some of the other the opportunities, job opportunities. So thanks for listening to us all about home construction here at WATA. We'll take another break. Hey, don't forget tonight at the VFW, the Irish pot roast dinner. Thanks for listening to us. Be right back. That's right. All about home construction here on WATA. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there, both on the radio and in the podcast. And hey, share the podcast with your friends. If you missed something, you want to go back, check it out on the podcast. Speaking with John and Alex from Insulating Services Incorporated. And don't forget, guys, as always, we'll get the contact information for you towards the end of the show. So if our listeners are out there looking for pen and paper, you don't have to scramble just yet. Wait till towards the end of the show. But John and Alex, thanks again for stepping on and talking with us a little bit about the commercial side of the insulation industry this morning. And so before the break, we had sort of mentioned, talking about a little bit of both new construction and going back and remodeling. And what I don't even know if that's the right word in when it comes to in industrial or commercial jobs.
Yeah, so it really depends on the economic cycle. When the economic cycle's in an upswing like it has been for the past 15 years, the capital investment and new projects, new construction are the bulk of what we're involved in. The Carolinas have been very friendly to capital investment in general, not just North Carolina, but South Carolina. And industry has come in here in various forms. A lot of manufacturing has come in here. So the bulk of our business has been from new investments, new plants, new facilities. So that's what they call a greenfield projects, like you're starting with a green pasture and you build up from it. And then another part of our business, which is a smaller portion currently, is what they call brownfield. So you have an existing facility and you're adding on to it, you're expanding it. So that is also part of our business. But you also have ongoing maintenance, right? All these facilities, to operate efficiently, there's always damage, there's always different exogenous factors that happen, and you have to replace insulation. And that happens on an annual basis. So there's plenty of opportunities for existing facilities just from the maintenance standpoint. But we primarily go after new construction. And fortunately, like I said, the investment in the Carolinas has been as such that we've been able to really prosper and have a lot of opportunities, not just for us, but our industry as a whole. There's plenty of business to go around for everybody.
Well, that's awesome to hear. And you know, again, I know just speaking of North Carolina, because that's where the state that I'm in, but even South Carolina, because we live close enough, we hear that. But one thing that we see is a lot more of, you know, the industries. Commercial industries are growing, especially manufacturing. You know, it used to be back, 30, 40 years ago at this point, you know, like it was a big industrial state. And it seems like we're starting to get back into that phase, if you will, a little more. It's just a different industry at this point. But we have car manufacturing plants, you know, like you had mentioned before. We're starting to see some, you know, with some of these batteries and lithium and things like that, like we're starting to see at least a trend going towards that direction.
Absolutely, yeah. North Carolina used to be tobacco and textiles, right?
Right.
And as those businesses really declined into the 90s and beyond, it's been backfilled by manufacturing. So the Raleigh-Durham area is the mecca of the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, some of the biggest investments in the country are happening over there. I'm talking about tens of billions of dollars. And data centers, that's another big one.
Right.
Apple, Google, Facebook, all these giant tech companies that have immense data centers in North Carolina. So there's definitely just a renaissance. It's just it went from tobacco and textiles to just more modern manufacturing. And
right.
You know, fortunately, our local governments have made the incentives as such that businesses want to invest in our state. So it's a really good thing.
That's awesome. You know, one thing I was looking at is you guys have offices in Charlotte, Atlanta, Nashville, and Kingsport.
Yes.
When I was curious, like, do you see like a different trend in each of those different markets?
So Kingsport is kind of an anomaly. So Kingsport, really, if you've ever been up that way, Eastman Chemical is the largest employer in Kingsport. The plant itself is a city. I mean, it's giant. So really that branch was open many, many years ago just to support that plant and some of the other local plants. But the Atlanta, Nashville, and Charlotte markets are amongst the fastest growing in the country, especially Nashville. So if you go to downtown Nashville, it's just an abundance of cranes, abundance of construction. We've had a presence there for well over 25 years, but we're seeing the trend of investment there like we do in Charlotte and Atlanta.
Right. Well, I've actually I was just up towards Kingsport last week, so I was by the facility there. I know what you're talking about. So it's it is a cool place up there, but it's interesting to see the Charlotte, Atlanta, Nashville. You know, I think a lot of especially when you look at the news and it's like you hear this, you kind of get this perception like, you know, Detroit being the big one I think of. It's like it's sort of declining in industry, whereas in the past that was the giant. And it seems like a lot of these Nashville, Atlanta, Charlotte areas are really kind of benefiting from that decline up north, where we're starting to pull in some other industries for different reasons. So,
capital finds its way to where it's treated best.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So the northern states are high cost, high labor costs, high taxes. The southern states are far more competitive. So you've seen that natural migration. Heck, even in residential. I mean, I've been in North Carolina all my life. And so many people in my neighborhood moving from California and New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania. And, they're astounded what $500,000 buys them here, which in California, $500,000 buys you 500 square foot shack. You know what I mean? So business is the same way. I'm exaggerating a little bit, obviously, but the cost of living, the cost of doing business in those states is far higher than it is down in the South, and that's why you're seeing such a boom in these areas, and I think that's going to continue for a little while.
Well, that's it. Up here in the mountains, we get a lot of people from Florida that come up, and they come up on vacation, and then they end up trying to move here for various reasons, and and the infrastructure. I think North Carolina itself is at least trying to improve on that infrastructure, but that's probably a whole different show. But one thing I'm curious about too, going back to our original topic of talking about just sort of the market itself, right? The bringing in of people in the industry, of getting workers into the industry. Do you see a trend between those the three big cities there? Like, would you say the market, the job market itself is sort of the same, or do you see a fluctuation between the three different areas?
I don't know the answer to that question. That's an excellent question. I would say the demand for the skilled labor for all the areas is probably about the same. There's just not enough supply and way too much demand. I wouldn't have any specific statistics, but this trend is omnipresent in the entire country.
Sure.
There's a shortage everywhere. I talked to a lot of contractors that may not be in insulation, may be in other trades. And you ask them all what's the biggest issue that they're contending with, and it's unanimous that it's the shortage of skilled labor.
That's awesome.
Doing a show like yours, you having us on, the Charlotte FC events that we're doing, it's just a part of us kind of raising awareness that, hey, there's a big opportunity here if you want a career that's going to be lasting, that's going to have a tremendous earning potential, and it's not going to have the threats of automation like so many other types of professions.
Well, and that's crucial with the way the world is moving, the direction we're moving in these days. But so what is when you're talking about recruiting employees, if you will, into the industry? What are you looking for? Are you talking about the kids that are coming right out of high school, that's not going the college route? Are you talking about people who are, maybe in residential now that's looking for another opportunity? What is the ideal candidate, if you will?
So on a very basic level, the ideal candidate needs to possess the skills that require no God-given talent, such as showing up on time,
right?
Willing to work and willing to learn, just having a drive behind them to learn and improve and take pride in their work. As far as any other kind of demographic, as far as age, that really doesn't matter. Anybody that's willing to learn is welcome. So we've had people start in their early 20s or late teens. We've had people start in their 30s in this industry. So it again goes back to more of an awareness that I think some people don't even realize that this is a career path they could take, right? So that's what we want to communicate to everybody, that this is a very vibrant industry. It's got tremendous earning potential. So we want to recruit those and get the message out to let them know that this is a viable industry to be in long term. So we're not really, I'm giving you a kind of a non-answer because we're not really sure what the best way to go about this.
Sure.
So we just kind of started down this path of just starting to market the industry.
Yeah.
Just insulation, but the trades. And, whoever's interested in exploring this career path, And again, we're offering careers. We're not offering jobs because we're not a labor pool where we just have a revolving door of people going in and out. We pay benefits to our field employees, 401k. There's profit sharing. So this is very much a career. So that's what we're marketing to whoever's interested in a long-term career in the trades.
Well, to me, that again is such an awesome thing because it's and this is coming from a guy who's, I mean, I have a 4-year degree, right? But I'm also the one who's sitting here paying off college debt too. So to give kids the opportunities, well, I say kids because that's where I focus a lot. These young adults, if you will, who come out of high school or college age kids, it just gives them such a great opportunity to get ahead in life. Definitely. So, tell you what, guys, we're going to take a quick break. Speaking with Insulated Services, John and Alex. Guys, we're going to take our last break, and we'll come right back right after this. Thanks for listening to us. That's right. All about home construction here on WATA. And again, speaking with Insulated Services, speaking with John and Alex from Insulated Services. And guys, thanks again for popping on the show this morning. You guys are out of Charlotte. And, I mentioned before, we'll get some contact information here. So if our listeners want to grab pen and paper to get in touch with you guys, by all means, now's the time. But thanks again thanks for just coming on.
Appreciate it, Ted.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what it's all about, right? Like our show is just all about helping people out, and that's where we like, and so we love to get just to push this industry as well. There's such a demand. It's such a prosperous industry for so many folks that it's worth having you guys on. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, we do appreciate it. And, we are looking for, we definitely like to recruit local talent, help out the Carolinas. We do have jobs scattered about the Southeast. So if anybody's tuning in from outside of the Carolinas, we may have an opportunity for them as well. The best way to reach us now is if you go to our website, www.insulatingservices.com. It's insulating services. If you go there, you'll be able to get a gist of our business. It'll have our, what we do, but also all of our contact information, including our phone number if you'd like to call in. But honestly, the best way for now, if you want to get in direct contact with us, you can send us an email. We're also set up with social media presence, including Instagram and Facebook. And on the other side of that, again, my name is Alex. I'll be the one typically fielding those inquiries. If I have the answers for you, of course, I'll give them to you right away. If not, we have a wealth of experience at Insulating Services to be able to handle any inquiries that you have, including for recruitment purposes. And would love to bring some people to our industry. Experience would be great, but there are opportunities if you don't as well.
Nice, and of course, I will have that contact information up on the Facebook page myself, and on the show notes for those who are listening to the podcast. So, well, John and Alex, thanks again for stepping in today and calling in and being on the show. I really appreciate it, and I hope to stay in touch with you guys.
Absolutely, definitely. Thank you very much.
All right, guys.
And Terry, again, it was good seeing you at the Charlotte FC game. Hopefully, we'll catch you for another game. If any of your listeners do come to the Charlotte FC, any of the games, we'll be out there with a tent for the tailgate. So, obviously, be very hospitable and welcoming, and look forward to connecting and on a personal level as well.
That's awesome. For the crown, right? That's what we're supposed to be saying.
For the crown. That's right.
Guys, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for listening to us all about home construction here on WATA. See you next time.